Thank you very much, and thanks everyone for coming back on long first day of this conference. So I'm going to be taking a media communication, media industries approach to this, and the work is based on collaborative work with my colleague David Craig from USC, University of Southern California, Annenberg School, and our title that you see there. The idea of Hollywood.com with a double M draws on the fact that in trying to map this new screen ecology of what we call social media entertainment, communitainment, it draws on the notion that communications technologies, communication is one of the key things here as much as content, that the ecology is fueled by new and old forms of commercialism, and it's driven by a philosophy of community. So the COMM is meant to work at those 3 or 4 levels. Now, we argue that the emerging shape of the screen industries in the 21st century shows that established players and norms, principles and practices are ceding significant power and influence to the new digital streaming platforms. And just as notably, digital platforms, preeminently YouTube and Facebook, represent a greater value proposition to the advertising industry that has served as the bulwark for legacy media for a good 50, 60 or more years. Meanwhile, social media content production entrepreneurs have harnessed these platforms to generate significantly different content, separate from a century-long model of intellectual property control in the entertainment content and copyright industries. Now, some of this content and the creators who produce it mark a dramatically greater level of gender, sexual and cultural diversity than seen in mainstream screen entertainment. This new screen ecology is driven as well by intrinsically interactive viewer and audience centricity. Combined, these factors inform a qualitatively different globalisation dynamic that is scaled with great velocity, posing new challenges for screen regulatory regimes, not to mention media scholars themselves. So we anatomise this emerging proto-industry based on the YouTube platform. We map the platforms and affordances, the content innovation and creative labour, the monetisation and management, and new forms of media globalisation, along with the critical cultural concerns raised by this nascent media industry. We look to contribute revisionist accounts in the political economy of new media, construct an account of short-form commercialising online video culture as a highly normative space driven by appeals to authenticity and community. We extend the debate on creative labour to include the precariousness of media management as well as creators, and we assess the claims for a new wave of media globalisation achieved without IP control. Now, apart from the usual kinds of methods that we're all familiar with, we've also done to this date about 135 interviews in the US, India, China, Australia, Japan, and we're conducting research work this week and the next in London and Berlin. So some comments about political economy. So the Hollywood majors have adapted to waves of significant change in regulatory structure, technology and taste across more than a century. However, they're now confronted by arguably unprecedented challenges. You can see some of the issues there in that bar graph. There are fundamental differences between the new platforms, Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Netflix, Yahoo, etc., and media incumbents. While the challenge is unprecedented, we stress the clash of cultures inherent in the interdependence and negotiated convergence of the major digital platforms. We think of them as NoCal and SoCal, a clash of cultures between Northern California and Southern California. NoCal, with their information technology strategies and cultures, including rapid prototyping and iteration, permanent beta, advanced measurement and programmatics, versus the established screen media industries, Hollywood, the broadcasters and cable interests, SoCal, with their time-honoured business models of talent-driven mass media and premium content. So, how to write the history of YouTube in this context? YouTube's history has tended to be written around a fall from grace narrative, as we talked a little about this morning in Jean's plenary. This fall from grace narrative structures an account of social media platforms whose originating communal visions have been fatally compromised by the encroachment of commercialism. The nature of communal and non-commercial or pre-commercial content has been a major focus of media studies, media and communication and cultural studies scholarship recently, and you'll be familiar with a number of the key references here. Jean's vernacular creativity, Axel Brunz's producage, the informal sector named by Ramon Lobato and Julian Thomas, participatory culture, Henry Jenkins, and so on. Where this debate has turned to YouTube's formalisation, it has tended to centre on the loss of the communitarian originating amateur spirit of the early days of the platform. So in the first critical monograph on YouTube that we had a presentation on from Jean this morning, so Burgess and Green speak of its meaning and use as being underdetermined in its early days. And so, to quote them, YouTube's ascendancy has occurred amid a fog of uncertainty and contradiction around what it is actually for. YouTube's apparent or stated mission has continually morphed as a result of both corporate practices and audience use, they say. But other scholars have been unequivocal about YouTube seemingly poised to become just another cog in the media content industry. So we hear from Kim, for example, a shift from the institutionalization, he says, of YouTube from user-generated to professionally generated content. And similarly, Jose Van Dyke describes YouTube's evolution from homecasting to broadcasting and, to quote her, toward viewer-based principles and away from community-oriented social networking. In the wake of these changes, according to Van Dyke, a far cry, she says, from its original design, YouTube is no longer an alternative to television, but a fully fledged player in the media entertainment industry. Now, as I asked Jean in that exchange this morning, in a significant piece of revisionist historiography, Patrick Vonderow has shown that YouTube was, from its earliest plans, always envisaged as a commercial proposition, as the former PayPal employees and engineers behind its beta iteration sought to develop a scalable project capable of rapidly growing an audience millions for free, with revenue-generating opportunities designed as part of its core functions. Notwithstanding this strike at the heart of the fall from grace narrative, there is still massive civic space available on YouTube, with millions of citizens the world over using such space for non-commercial purposes. But it does underline the need for a critical history that deals with the internal contradictions and inherent tensions of a major commercial platform significantly built around the value of originally amateur content and content makers. And I must say, as I think I remarked this morning, that recently the slide deck, the PayPal slide deck has come to light, and as I prepared this, this very unglamorous PowerPoint, I was thinking, well, at least I look better than the ones from 2005 that earned them $3.5 million from Sequoia. You can have a look at it online if you like. The 10-year history of YouTube since Google's takeover can be written as a history of Google seeking to come to terms with the so-called fundamentals of entertainment and content and talent development from its no-cal base as an IT company dedicated to scale, automation, permanent beta, rapid prototyping and iteration. Instead of a political economy based around black box capitalism asserting dominion over powerless communal minions, this is a history of capital radically unsure of what will work and regularly at war with itself. It's a history and a conceptual framework that's much closer to Lashin Uri's disorganised capitalism than Christian Fuchs or Dalian Jing's triumphalist digital capitalism. YouTube tried to operate as a digital distribution platform, but was not able to compete successfully with established media companies and models that favoured copyright and scarcity. Their efforts to professionalise UGC creators have often misrecognised have often misrecognised the importance of the creator in favour of the imperative to scale. The no-cal obsession with scale led to the collapse of cost per mil, the clicks per mil, the driver of advertising revenue. It led to the collapse of CPMs, which started eight or so years ago at about $20+ CPMs, and now hits around $2 CPM. So the obsession with scale led to the collapse of CPMs and destroyed the first phase business model. This forced content creators and multi-channel networks to find new sources of revenue, such as licensing, TV deals, and live appearances, all, of course, well-established SoCal strategies for revenue generation. And on these pivots go YouTube, right up to this month's announcement by YouTube of a new community feature to make their platform more social after trying to turn it into a cable service with YouTube Red. So that's that. So the second point I want to talk about is about creator labour. The YouTube scale metrics, we've had them rehearsed today, but they're always impressive to have to be reminded of. More than 1 billion users, 4 billion videos watched today per day, uploads of 300, 400 hours per minute, downloads of 77, 52 hours per minute. Viewing comes 50% from mobile. What's less well known is that more than 2 million YouTube creators now receive some form of remuneration from their uploaded content. More than 1,500 YouTube channels have at least 1 million subscribers. And of course, many of the most influential and important, qualitatively, culturally important channels don't have anywhere near those kinds of figures. And the creators who create them are spread globally, although it has to be said predominantly in the West. Most of these creators are professionalising previously amateur content creators using new entertainment and communicative formats, including vlogging, gameplay, how-to, sketch comedy, and webisodic micronarrative, to develop significant followings that can extend across multiple platforms. The quite radical difference offered by the new Screen Ecology's provision of potential career opportunity and even celebrity status through amateur hobbyism and personal expression, that this change cannot and shouldn't be gainsaid. This category of previously amateur, full-time professionalising content creators reverses the normative route through which media talent is filtered or has been filtered. Online creators need to be seen as a class of content creators who are able to exercise a higher level of control over their career prospects than any previous models of professionalising talent. The head of the digital division of a leading Hollywood talent agency commented to us in interview, a traditional film or television artist, a writer, a director, a performer, has spent a certain amount of their life preparing to be ready for when opportunity knocks. The mentality of a digital creator is the exact opposite. They're not preparing for an opportunity, they're creating it themselves. The typical YouTube creator has had little or no specific training and few qualifications, but enters the YouTube revenue sharing system with some degree of success already established and seemingly abundant clarity about their relationship with their fan base. Assumptions about talent management services intent on moving clients from the farm to the big league, all the talk of Hollywood, are fraught with complication and viable for only a small subset of content creators. This makes very much for the precarity of media management in this system as much as the precarity of creator labour. Traditional media has less value for these on-screen performers who have never cultivated the core Hollywood skills of acting, screenwriting or directing. Only a small percentage of content creators recognise the value in working in Hollywood, whether for lack of adequate remuneration, control or time. For the most successful content creators, some of whom are earning 6 or 7-figure sums from multiple revenue streams, traditional film and television fees can simply be uncompetitive. Other content creators are less willing to give up the virtually absolute control they have over their own work. Meanwhile, the time required to write or perform in traditional media, including protracted periods of development or simply waiting around on set for the lighting to change, can cost the creators valuable time spent creating their own proprietary content and fostering further engagement with their fans. The rise of amateur content creators on new media platforms is not itself new, of course, but there is simply no comparison with these online creators across many variables, not least of which is access to global distribution across multiple platforms. In addition, the means of digital production affords not only low production, but virtually no division of labour, except at the top tiers of the ecology. The creator has replaced the writer, producer, director, actor above the line, as well as the editor, location scout, composer, and visual effects supervisor below the line. In addition, through the entrepreneurial agency afforded by these platforms, a content creator can operate as their own ad sales representatives, securing partnerships with the platforms for split revenue. Creators can field direct inquiries from advertisers extending influencer marketing deals. And gone in this ecology are the ad sales divisions of the television networks and the creative agencies and media buyers who crafted the 30-second spots and bought the airtime. Ingrid Nielsen is a glambassador for CoverGirl, although she describes this partnership as providing a service to the brand which aligns with her own. In fact, as she noted in our interview, I turn down brands all the time. I'm either not interested in the product, or it doesn't fit with what I'm doing, or I worked with them before and it didn't work out. And the agency and entrepreneurialism extends well beyond the platforms and the content. Michelle Phan parlayed her DIY, do-it-yourself makeup expertise from her YouTube channels into a lifestyles empire, including her Ipsy makeup subscription service, currently valued at $84 million. So with personal agency, unlike anything in traditional media labour, these entrepreneurs leave their day jobs, or in some instances never held one, although they leave them for jobs that require operation around the clock. Ingrid Nielsen, who incubated her YouTube career in the bathroom of her Berkeley University dorm, mentioned, "Had I gone the traditional 9-to-5 route, I would have sat there with regrets, but then I was already making more money than I would at an entry-level job." So Nielsen's account contrasts with the average aspirant in Hollywood, an industry notorious for requiring years of underpaid, dues-paying and apprenticeship in toxic and demanding conditions. Now, of course, there are serious issues in this proto-industry with flame-out, burnout and age-out in an industry that's less than 10 years old. But its distinctiveness first needs to be anatomised before we run to critique. So, Thirdly, then, some comments around content and mode of address in this field. So what's the nature of the actual content generated in social media entertainment? Well, social media entertainment, SME content, can be dismissed as self-absorbed vlogging and beauty tips, addictive gameplay and sophomoric stunt comedy. And concerns about its popularity can rehearse the iron law of cultural history, which sees every new era of popular culture considered as reason for a new moral panic. But it's the highly normative value put on authenticity and community and the rules of the game that have developed rapidly to institutionalise such normative values that I want to stress here. The online intellectual and leading advocate in this field, Hank Green, says there are essentially three native to online entertainment genres or verticals: vlogging, gameplay, and the how-to or style and popular knowledge genre. Each offer powerful discourses of authenticity and community that legitimise the appeal of SME content. These practices are rigorously differentiated from established professional media by both creator and fan. Representative of this normativity are assertions from creators, such as this one: we don't want to be a bit worse than television, we want to be a bit better than amateurs. Or from fans, the best one that I've ever seen is this one: vloggers are real people, actors are just bodies with a script. There are some other great ones out there as well. One creator said, I want to create content that's an inch deep and a mile wide. These discourses serve in stark contrast to the production, content and marketing strategies of traditional media industries, and in turn are now well in train in turning these traditional strategies inside out. It's the relationship between discourses of authenticity and community that define the distinctive mode of address of social media entertainment. Every SME creator is subject to a level of fan and subscriber response and feedback that in its virtual real-time intensity and transparency is without parallel in entertainment genre. The creator's discourse of authenticity, their distinctiveness in this massively, and always growing field, is their claim to authenticity, whether that be the individual's highly personalistic real-time life in the vlog, the inner as well as outer beauty discourse of the style genre, or the way that game players show their virtuosity, commitment, and their responsiveness to their followers, or the rough reality and lack of production values of the stunt. These various but consistent authenticity claims are tested constantly by the community the creator calls into being as a result of the intense level of interactivity intrinsic to the social media entertainment business model and to digital platform affordances. The nature of textual scholarship of social media entertainment as an industry is very underdeveloped. We haven't really got a media studies literature on these native verticals at all yet. Amar Jean Christian has written some of the best early accounts of this textual sphere, but his work has evolved into a more strongly focused normative defence of more truly independent content than this content. The analytical agenda needs to explore ways in which norms are enforced within these online communities, how the social contract between creator and fan base, in other words, authenticity and community, is maintained over time, especially as creators evolve. One of our favourites is Fred Figglehorn, whose real name is Lucas Cruikshank. Now, the online brand Fred, which made him lots of money and made him famous, he's now franchised. He's got too old for it. He's instead of walking away from the brand, he's franchised it. He's made it available to anyone else who wants to occupy it. Meanwhile, he gets on with developing a new brand under his own name, his real name. Or consider the way that, the big one, PewDiePie, if you looked at the history of his video production over the 9 years he's worked in this field, PewDiePie's morphed from a hardcore game player to a state where his video output is a highly reflexive, multivalent, genre-bending experience, self-deprecatingly and sometimes very politically aware of his status at the top of a very tall pile of online creators. One of the very few detailed textual studies in media studies of this transition, across a career of a particular content maker, tracks the trajectory of short segment comedy Annoying Orange. As Joanne Moriel calls it, from user-generated content to television series and cultural phenomenon. Now, the analysis is a very interesting one, but the tone in which she says the case of Annoying Orange exemplifies the processes whereby everyday prosumer content on the web becomes fodder for commercial media, and demonstrates how YouTube, while presenting itself as a site for participatory culture, has become an arm of traditional media. That kind of tone suggests that the transition from amateur to professional involves inevitably compromised values and innovation deficit. And really the only way to really answer that question, I think, you need to answer it over time to see whether the community called into being around this particular content has stayed and what its attitude is to it, rather than by condemning it by ideological fiat. Hector Postigo's work on the gameplay genre is dramatically different from that of Moriel. His methodology is classic participant observation. This Temple University professor spent his own bucks on data servers and his own time on getting proficient enough, though as he readily confesses, he still sucked at it. But he spent enough time getting proficient enough to earn enough respect in the gameplay community to be able to interact with them as a researcher, which raises extremely pertinent questions about not only mode of address, but who is this content for? And how should it be studied? And it's certainly mostly not for the likes of me, and possibly not for you. It's at the opposite end of the textual continuum from what Jason Mattel calls complex TV, and raises the sorts of questions that Jonathan Gray and Amanda Lotz in their book TV Studies do about short form practices around short form content, when traditional study is far more interested in complex aesthetics, intriguing narratives and long-term character development. Postigo shows the delicate dance of authenticity, independence and small business savvy on a commercial platform, given that, as he says, and I'm quoting here, subscribers, fans and game commentators live in the same normative environment where sharing and community must be prioritised. They also live in the life world where capital accumulation is important and so have sometimes conflicting values. So, some comments then about the cultural politics of this proto-industry. In January this year, for the second year in a row, the Academy Awards failed to recognise a single person of colour in the acting categories. The lack of diversity by the Motion Picture Academy generated a backlash from minorities, including protests and pickets of the Oscar show, along with an online hashtag activist campaign that you'll all be very familiar with, Oscars So White, that went viral. Numerous minority activist organisations joined forces to pressure the Big Six movie studios for more diversity. In February this year, the USC Annenberg School for Communication and Journalism published a big report, a diversity report, that assessed inclusion on screen and behind the camera in fictional films, TV shows and digital series distributed by the 10 major media companies. And their conclusion was that Hollywood still functions as a straight white boys' club. In March, the 5th annual Streamy Awards honoured the best in online video and the creators behind them. The nominees included Indian-Canadian Sikh Lily Singh, LGBTQ American Tyler Oakley, African American Viner King Bark, Asian American YouTuber Ryan Higa, transgender beauty vlogger Gigi Gorgeous, and Muslim American Yusuf Erekat, aka Fosi, amongst many other multicultural creators. In addition, the Streamies have a category for social good campaigns, including the YouTube-sponsored Proud to Love campaign on behalf of LGBTQ marriage equality, and Tyler Oakley's birthday campaign to raise funds for the Trevor Project, an organisation that provides crisis intervention and suicide prevention for LGBTQ young people. Over that summer, the northern summer just gone, the Coalition of Asian Pacifics in Entertainment launched the 3rd season of their I Am campaign that promotes the next generation of Asia Pacific entertainers. Across all 3 seasons, these videos featured prominent content creators, including Michelle Phan, Phil Yu, Ryan Higa, David Choi, Wong Fu Productions, and Dominatrix or D-Trix Sandoval. Similarly, in August of this year, GLAAD, G-L-A-A-D, announced that Hannah Hart would be the 2nd content creator in a row after Tyler Oakley last year to receive the Davidson Valentini Award for an LGBTQ media professional who has made a significant difference in promoting equality and acceptance for the LGBTQ community. Hart was recognised for creating a series of videos on YouTube that discussed her coming out, as well as concerns within the community. The videos have garnered between 100,000 and 1.2 million views since they first appeared across this period under review. In March, in 2015, Mashable, a global multi-platform media and entertainment service that focuses on entertainment news, issued a series of diversity reports regarding on-screen representation of and narratives about minorities. The film, television and games industries received grades from Mashable of C and D, whereas digital garnered the only A. According to the editors, in contrast to traditional media, and I quote, "The digital entertainment space has always been pioneering in including people of all stripes and continues to broaden in 2015. Asian Americans have always over-indexed in this space. In YouTube's first and second round of funding for original channels, the platform helped launch the YOMF channel, which is an acronym for the Asian phrase, "You offend me, you offend my father," and featured multiple Asian American content creators like Ryan Higa, Kevin Jumba, and Chester C. Some of the biggest names in social media entertainment, Freddie Wong of Rocket Jump and the team from Wong Fu Productions, to say nothing, of course, of Michelle Phan, are part of this very significant over-indexing. The rapid succession of LGBTQ YouTubers coming out had Vanity Fair recently declaring that everyone will come out on YouTube eventually. This on the basis of a seemingly endless number of mid-career successful SME content creators coming out of the closet. A brief list includes Jerry Graceffa, Ingrid Nielsen, and the Rhodes brothers, whose videos have been seen between 15 and 22 million times. The timing of this phenomenon may have appeared serendipitous in the light of the marriage equality decision in the US Supreme Court in early 2015. but deeper analysis reveals a proliferation of LGBTQ SME content creators operating with commercial success in this industry. Some creators have previously come out in recent years. Hannah Hart, Connor Franta, Troye Sivan, Lucas Cruikshank himself, while others have come out since their debut, Tyler Oakley, Davey Wavy and others. Some creators have allowed audiences to witness their transformation from cis to transgender online, including Gigi Gorgeous. Now, some of the progressive politics we can see in social media entertainment is not around identity, as I've been outlining now, but around civic activism and powerful advocacy for this emerging proto-industry. And here, Hank and John Green are preeminent. Their careers, their YouTube channel Vlogbrothers, and their organisation Nerdfighters have been dedicated to encourage young people, as they say, to see themselves as people who matter and as people who can influence policy. Their activism extends to calling out powerful platforms which have helped destroy the CPM rates compared to the early days, that's YouTube, and those who are freebooting, in other words, stealing video content, and that's Facebook. Their position as exemplary Davids against the Goliaths elicits hurried responses from the usually faceless Facebooks. When they are not saving creative space from platform depredation, they are devising fun ways to get millennials signed up to vote in the upcoming US elections. Now, I'm going to speed up a bit. I've been given the 5-minute wind-up. Media globalisation, my last topic, has been an enduring topic in film and media studies. I won't go into that. You know all the references. However, it's possible to posit a qualitatively new wave of media globalisation based on the global availability and uptake of YouTube, which is relatively frictionless compared to national broadcasting and systems of film and DVD release by windowed territory. Compared to film and television, there is very little imposed content regulation on these platforms as they build their audiences around the world. Consider the comparison with Netflix. Netflix is a very aggressive global expansion. It's reached 190 countries this year, requires it to negotiate with pre-existing rights holders in each new territory, and often requires it to close down informal means of access, such as VPN workarounds in territories it enters. Now, compare that to the largely born global SME content. It's notable that 80% of YouTube traffic comes from outside the US, and 60% of creators' views come from outside their home country. And in my country, Australia, is closer to 90%. This is because this massively growing proto-industry, in stark contrast to content industries in general, and Hollywood and broadcast TV in particular, isn't primarily based on IP control. YouTube avoided that process. Instead, it offered partnership agreements based on a split of advertising. And so YouTube talks about being a facilitator of creator and content in many international markets in which it operates. And the key difference between the way it operates and traditional media looks to produce, own and license content for distribution, exhibition or sale in multiple separate territories, whereas YouTube works hard to avoid the conflation of YouTube content creation with their role as platform facilitation or middle people. Now, there are significant reasons for this, and they've been rehearsed in some of the sessions during today. The key point here is that the Digital Millennium Copyright Act of 1998, we hear about it as being an act that criminalised circumvention measures and heightened penalties for copyright infringement, but it also created at the same time the safe harbour provisions under which YouTube and the big digital platforms operate. And this raises huge regulatory issues for SME content that I don't have time to go into now. So finally, to wrap up, the whole talk. In the project, David and I are looking to take full account of the structural conditions that this proto-industry works within, the huge global spanning online platforms, the leaders of which are far bigger than the Hollywood majors, which have had such a dominating influence on global media. We take account of a fast advancing algorithmic culture with all its worries around surveillance, lack of privacy, etc. We look to take full account of the precariousness of online labour. But at the core, our project is driven by a commitment to new voices, new viable enterprise, these amateurs developing what they hope may be sustainable careers. We're interested in tracking cultural progressivity as it creates space within commercialising systems. And we think there's strong evidence to suggest that we're finding these types of voices, businesses and careers to a larger extent in online social media entertainment space than in older established global media orders. Thank you very much.